Hello and welcome to another edition of Carnivore Bites. I'm your host, Jeff Sherman, along with Dr. Eric Lobkin. And overshadowing anything in the news is the obvious situation in the Middle East, and in particular, Israel. And just looking at the overall situation and being a supporter of Israel and someone who's very interested in history, I would have to say that Israel has never been in a more precarious situation than they are in now, besides maybe the War of Independence and the opening days of the Yom Kippur War. But there is no room for error. You look at what they're up against. The Lebanon, the Gaza Strip, Iran. Basically, if you just look at the numbers, is at least an equal match to Israel. Uh, Thanks to Obama and others, including Western Europe. I think there is absolutely no room for error by Israel in any way. And if they do not have an overwhelming victory, it has changed the entire power structure of the Middle East. Am I not correct, sir?
You are correct. Everything is very precarious right now, and it's absolutely horrible. Anti Semitism since the Hamas attack is up 438%.
Mm-hmm.
That is unheard of. And
And let's reflect a little bit on that because you have to put it into an historical connotation. Um, I was around, in '73, nothing. Other conflicts in '81 in Lebanon, that conflict, and with Syria in that same year, nothing like this. A lot has changed over the last 40 years, hasn't it? In
it
America
it
and the
really
world.
has. Anti-Semitism is on the rise, and this is not simply anti-Israel. They're not saying, well, let's fight Israel. They are saying death to Jews. And they're also saying death to America. And of course, the Biden administration has been stoking all of this. They gave, so far during the Biden administration, $1 billion to Hamas. And I know people are going to say, oh, no, no, no. They didn't give it to Hamas. They gave it to Palestinians for humanitarian reasons.
Hmm.
Guess
Please,
what?
it's a
The,
front
Pal-
group. Hello.
the Palestinians never got it. Hamas just this week stole the humanitarian supplies that the UN was trying to get to Palestinians.
Okay,
So,
what percentage of people are ever going to know about that?
I mean,
Like
even
five?
the UN sent out a press release and nobody covered it. It is absolutely unimaginable that anti Semitism has gotten this bad. And the thing is, I mean, I think we said this on last week's podcast, but here in America, Jews represent 2% of the population. They represent 51.3% of hate crimes. And
That's
now
alarming numbers,
we've,
obviously.
yes, and now we've got Congress people who are backing the terrorists, who are obviously anti Semitic. And what's really funny is that these people are yelling death to the Jews and they're backing Hamas and these terror attacks. And yet, just a few years ago, they were the ones accusing Donald Trump of being a Nazi.
It is inexplicable without any question about it. You have even what makes me even angrier is Jews like Adam Schiff, who was on a couple of shows with Omar, resurrecting her. This is about 6, 8 months ago. Time flies. Then you have Jamie Raskin, a real SOB. Basically, he was interviewed and he was saying, "Oh, he can't find any anti-Semitism in the Democratic Party, but he could certainly find every effing thing Trump did. What a piece of shit!" And king, the king of piece of shits, is Bernie Sanders, the self-hating Jew. So there's liberal Jews, not all of them, obviously, but certainly a lot of them in power. And I'll give some credit for senatorial leadership going to Israel, but they're the people that should be speaking out. They're cowards. They put their own career, their own power ahead of their own people. And when are Jews going to wake up?
Yeah, I mean, I think this was a big wake up call when you had
Not for Jamie
uh,
Raskin.
not for Raskin. I'm talking about for the voters, because
I hope so.
when you have a prominent member of the Anti Defamation League on MSNBC, who MSNBC thought this was going to be a softball interview, and he went after them saying, "What script are you reading from?"
Well, I need to interject something. You have Andrea Mitchell, which also made me throw up, Jewish, basically taking the side of Hamas. I mean, what are these people thinking? I mean, you're Jewish. What are you thinking about? Israel goes, then it's all downhill from there, genius. I know she graduated UPenn, but please,
Well, that might be part of the problem.
there you
And
go.
fortunately, people are starting to speak up again about this. You know, we had the 31 student groups from Harvard, signed a letter supporting Hamas. Well, Bill Ackman and the CEOs of, I think, about a dozen Wall Street firms
Dozen.
have said they want these people's names to make sure they never work on Wall Street.
That is
Uh,
effing awesome. But hold on, you had Apple during the George Floyd situation, right? Have the big speech, blah 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 blah. Radio silence over this. Radio silence.
Yeah, Tim Cook has said nothing. There are
There
too
it is.
many CEOs who have said nothing. The big problem seems to be higher education, and we're seeing the Wexler Foundation, who the guy that runs the Wexler Foundation also founded Victoria's Secret. They are a big funder of UPenn, and they have just said UPenn can say goodbye to their money. Uh,
Well, I think it's good. No, this is really good, and there are some heroes like the CEO of McDonald's. They're they're being threatened by boycott for sending food and aid to Israel. So there are some heroes among us. But I do love the story about what you're saying about college because they're going to talk their ass into irrelevancy. You already have companies like Walmart saying now college degrees are optional. I think there's going to be an increasing trend. We've talked about it before. I'm convinced of it, right? Because where's the education? You get a bunch of goobly gop, and you look at these people, and when you see the Ivy League, and someone puts a microphone in front of them, they don't even know what the f they're talking about. They're just up there because it's cool, because they've been indoctrinated against God knows what, but it's also really interesting. MBAs used to be the gold standard in terms of career opportunities. Jobs are basic; there are none. They're in short supply, so that gig might be up as well. So, I want your comments. I mean, part of it is just economic dynamics, but part of it is, I think people are realizing what is college all about? They're coming out, they're totally effed in the head. I'd rather probably, like we talked about, in such as patronizing you because I think you had a really good point. And I thought about it. And I've told some colleagues about that. It's like I'd rather have a student here, a student, a applicant who's taken a smorgasbord of the right skill sets, STEM, and maybe they weren't that great in communications or in writing, and I think it's this person is ready to go, hit the ground running. I don't need anyone who's been educated in the benefits of Hamas.
No, and that seems to be the curriculum of choice now. A Berkeley law professor. Okay, UC Berkeley was the birthplace of the free speech movement
Yes,
in the 60s. A Berkeley law professor came out and sent a statement to major law firms saying, if you don't want to hire people who are promoting hate, then don't hire any of my students.
fantastic.
This this is what they're learning. They are learning anti-Semitism, they are learning hate, and it goes they are falling for, I mean, it was absolutely amazing to watch a college student be interviewed by Lawrence Jones claiming, oh, this never happened. It's being created by Israel. It's made up. It's like, no, it's not made up. And now, you know, we just had a hospital in Gaza hit, and Hamas sends out a press release saying Israeli missiles hit this hospital, and every news organization ran with it. They sent out alerts on their apps. Well, guess what? It didn't happen. The missile that hit the hospital, and actually it didn't hit the hospital, it hit the parking lot, was from Islamic Jihad. And they weren't even aiming at the hospital. It was a missile gone wrong. The reason it created so much devastation is because it had a lot more rocket fuel than anybody expected because it never flew to its destination. But when Israel puts out the evidence of all of this, actual,
Audio evidence as well. Yes,
not, yeah, well, not just audio, they
both,
had a call.
both.
Yes, they had a call that Hamas and Islamic Jihad were saying, oops, this was a mistake. And they had video that aired live on Al Jazeera showing where the missile was coming from. And despite that, they didn't run the correction. They stuck with Hamas's story. Really? You're getting your news from Hamas? They're a
Well,
propaganda
that's kind of
machine.
that's the shape of things, and we talked about this ad nauseum. You know, why are Jews supporting the Democrats when a recent poll just came out? I'm talking recently, and I believe it may have been even before the conflict, so it could even be worse. Less than half of Democrats support Israel. What are we thinking about, Dr. Lopkin?
I, I can't answer that. I have no idea what people are thinking of. The Democrats, we've got right now a fight over the Speaker of the House, and
Hmm.
the Democrats and
Thanks to
Hillary,
Matt Gates, yeah.
yes, and the Democrats and Hillary Clinton have said, well, the problem is the ultra MAGA Republicans are the tail wagging the dog. It's a small group and they're controlling the whole party. What do you think the squad has been doing for the last several years with the Democratic Party? They took control of it. And they
Of
are
course,
not
100%.
and they're not just socialists, they are anti Semites. And let's not forget, I know I keep harping on this, the 1920s, 30s, and 40s, the German Nazi Party, the name of the Nazi Party was the National Socialist Movement of German Workers. This is the same thing that the American socialists are now pushing. And now they're backing Hamas.
Yes, that is true, but you have to add one more object of their hate, target of their hate, and that is the United States. Yeah, they serve in
Yes.
Congress. They hate America, they hate Jews, and they hate Israel. Hello, Democratic Party, the modern Democratic Party. There you go.
No, these people need to be removed from their seats. And actually, some research was done, and there is actually historic precedent for removing them from Congress because they support terrorism. So I
No, I
say,
think that's
let's
really
do
good,
it.
but it gets to Matt Gates. If he didn't pull that bullshit, McCarthy would have pulled the trigger on that. But
Yes,
shithead had to screw it up.
and McCarthy made a statement the other day, and he makes a lot of sense. This is squarely also to have Democrats to blame, because the Democrats could have supported McCarthy. They knew McCarthy was working with them, but they decided to go for political points and try to blame. They want the government shut down, and they want to blame the Republicans for doing it. So 8 Republicans and every Democrat voted to remove McCarthy. Every
Yeah, Mr. Jeffries
Democrat.
is he's a real diplomat, and we've been talking about even on terrestrial radio years ago. The modern Democratic Party puts its own power ahead of the good of their country or their constituency. They could give a rat's ass. But in the end, they win, don't they?
They don't they cheat. They don't, there was an old saying about the Oakland Raiders that they were such a great team because they always cheated. Now, I don't know if they did or not. This is going back to the 70s. But this is basically the playbook of the Democratic Party. We can't beat them in an election. Let's beat them in court. Let's try to keep Trump from running because we don't think we can beat him again.
There's no way if Trump didn't have the legal entanglements, he would kick Biden's ass. Sorry.
I'm not sure he's
A
not
year,
going to, even with the illegal
no, no,
entanglements.
100%, because we said it on the show. When your house is on fire, do you really give a shit that the fireman's the biggest asshole you've ever met? No. Get the hose and put out the friggin' fire, correct? And the house
That's it.
is
And
on.
right now,
I've never. Go ahead.
right now, the country is burning.
The world is burning. Okay, we got no one in charge. Even CBS, who Pellet, whatever, he goes hard ass on everyone else. He was interviewing Biden and basically said as a commentary, a snippet, he goes, Mr. Biden seemed very tired.
Yeah.
Really? Really? You went to college to figure that one out? Hello? You must have a medical degree.
Yeah, it's amazing. Biden went to Israel, and, I support that he went to Israel to show our support. I don't know that it was really necessary, but it actually
Probably got in the way.
highlighted just how weak a president he is, because every meeting he set up, with the exception of Benjamin Netanyahu, every world leader he was supposed to meet with
including
canceled
Abbas from Palestine. Yes,
yes,
he canceled too. Yes.
meeting with him.
Well, same thing when the UN. They all can't. No one in their right mind takes him seriously. And I'm sure the Israelis behind closed doors, we have to do this. You can't snub them, obviously. But it's like, basically just, it complicates the issue. We need to get this shit together, and we have numbnuts over there. God knows what could happen anyway. I think it was a good move, though. I think he did show solidarity with the Israelis. But he's the one who got us into this mess, so let's make no mistake about it. And people, the geniuses like Jake Sullivan, you talk about Ivy League, Mr. Harvard, ex-Obama official, said the Middle East has never been quieter. Taking a victory lap. Well, you may want to think twice about victory laps. There you go.
Yeah, he clearly
I think they call it asleep at the switch.
Yeah, he clearly missed the signs on this one. But, in his defense, so did the Mossad. There was a lot that was missed, but it is absolutely
They didn't miss giving $6 billion, though, did they?
No, they
another genius
$6
move.
billion to Iran. They have allowed Iran to sell their oil, making them a fortune. They gave $1 billion to Hamas.
Great move, yes.
This is ridiculous. And it is time to clean house. And I'm not simply talking about getting these idiots out of office. I am saying we need to take action across the globe. We need to enforce all of the sanctions that are currently on Iran, because the Biden administration hasn't. We need to put more sanctions on Iran and stop them from making any money.
Yeah, but you're missing a big point, Dr. Lopkin. The Wall Street Journal had the information that Iran was behind this, but it seems like the Biden administration are still searching. I have a good suggestion to them. Get $1.50, just go to the library, because it's a back issue, and read the Wall Street Journal. You'll find your evidence. Oh my God!
They know that Iran was behind this.
Of course they do. But they're chicken shit.
Yeah, they do not want to say it. They're trying to keep this from becoming a regional war. Guess what? It's too late for that. It's already a regional war.
There you go.
And let's open talks with Jordan, because you know what? The leadership in Jordan doesn't want Hezbollah in their country any more than Israel or America
Neither does Egypt.
Right.
They
Let
don't want the refugees. And
right,
no,
no,
I thought
no,
they were. I
I'm
thought
not
the
not talking about the refugees. I am talking
yeah, but
about
even Egypt didn't want the
the
refugees because they're scared shitless that Hamas is going to be with them
yeah, they don't nobody wants to take these refugees except for the
because of
squad, of
that.
course.
Oh
The
yeah, they would
squad
have them. Yeah, and
the squad wants them. But nobody wants to take the Palestinian refugees because they know Hamas is going to be hiding among them. But Jordan
nah.
doesn't want the Hezbollah terrorists in their territory. It's time to wipe the terrorists off the map.
Harvard's not going to like that. UPenn's not going to like that, Dr. Lopkin. The professors are going to get, the spoiled brat students are going to get really angry, and all the let's say anti-Semites, ex-Obama officials that are now with Biden, they're not going to like it either, are they?
No, they'll hate it. But you know what?
There you go.
The United States used to be a country that stood up for what was right. And I mean, those days have apparently long gone. It is
Yeah,
time to
Mary
bring
Poppins
them
was a good
back.
movie.
Yes,
Yes, I would agree
it,
with that. Yes,
it is
it's been
time
a
to
while.
bring that back. We need to start doing the right thing and not the politically expedient thing, not kowtowing to whiny college students that don't know their ass from their elbow. We need to stand up.
Well said, Dr. Lopkin. Speaking of standing up, there are some GOP leaders in the GOP. I don't know why it has to. Why couldn't it just come from the administration? Are putting together legislation or initiatives to freeze the $6 billion. Really, it's got to come from the congressional wing. Really, really, like that's even on the table to give them the money. What are you on acid? I'm talking about the Biden
Yeah,
administration.
yeah, it is absolute. Now, there's a lot going on with that and a lot contradictory. Sources within the Congress have said the administration has already agreed to freeze that money. The
Hmm.
administration itself denies that they've decided on that.
I
So
don't think they know what Trent is
yeah,
up.
I don't know who's right and who's wrong on this.
But
There
it
is
doesn't. But why
absolutely
would
no
you be?
excuse.
Why would you be? Limp about? Just come. It's an obvious statement to make. Show some balls and say it's frozen. To even entertain the idea that it's not is beyond explanation. How does that sound?
Because they are the administration is trying to appease Iran. And all you have to do is go back to World War II and see what
It's called
appeasement
Munich.
gets
Yes.
you. Yes, it is
But they don't
absolutely
teach that. They don't
ridiculous.
teach that at Harvard. Jake Sullivan never had that course.
Well,
No,
what do
his
you expect?
history started
Har-
from Woodstock to Vietnam and how horrible America was. That's where his lessons came from.
That's because Harvard is hiring Lori Lightfoot and Captain Neckfat from CNN as professors. Let's get some actual professors and not these morons that don't know their ass from their
Lori
elbow.
Lightfoot. It shows you. You know something? I'm sorry. Harvard. I'm dead serious. This is not just because the podcast or whatever. I'm a real business leader. You'd have to kind of. I mean, why wouldn't you hire someone from UConn, like a blue collar smart kid? I mean, I really have some second thoughts, and I'm not just doing that for effect. I'm being real, Dr. Locke, in your
No,
comment.
when you are hiring professors that are that incompetent,
No, I'm talking about
literally,
professional people. Yeah, that's
yeah,
right. Yes. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
yeah, when you are talking about hiring professors that are that incompetent, it calls into question everything about the institution.
There you go. Yes.
The, it's like they are no longer interested in educating the student body. Their only concern is growing their
Indoc
endowment.
and indoctrination. Lori Lightfoot, I'm sorry to say, I have a really smart cat. Her name is
Yeah,
Nancy, is Siamese. And I'm sorry to say, if I put together some intelligence testing, you know who comes? Would Nancy be able to go to Harvard? Lightfoot's
prob-
in.
probably. I mean, I don't
Yeah, but
even
she's
know
not
what law.
radical enough.
Yeah, I don't even know what Lori Lightfoot is teaching. Apparently, it's, how to
Gun
destroy an
safety?
American city. Yeah,
Gun safety? I don't know, whatever. She's a complete moron. I'm sorry, it's just a fact. Speaking of complete morons, we have Cori Bush, a member of the squad, and there's really no repercussions from this. First of all, they're dumber. I'm being honest. Again, I get back to Nancy the Siamese cat, another one that she's smarter than. Cori Bush had her freeloading husband on the payroll for security, and that was scrutinized and basically poo pooed. And now the genius, she's so creative and so intellectual, she put him the formal title or a line item is wage expense. Isn't that just like a wage expense and wage? Is just
yeah, that's
to me says
called
payoff.
salary. Yes, that's
There you
called
go, genius.
salary. It's
God.
Yeah, no, she's using donations to pay off her husband. It's basically money laundering. Let's throw her in jail where she belongs. It is absolutely unacceptable. And it's time that, and not just the Democrats, the Republicans need to be investigated too. All of these election funds need to be scrutinized. All of the junkets need to be scrutinized. All of the trips from paid for by lobbyists need to be scrutinized. It is time to say, you know what? You work for the American people, not for the lobbyists, not for the special interests. Stop laundering money. You know what? You should not be getting rich as a public servant.
It's called the Banana Republic. You have Nancy Pelosi went into Congress, the big socialist, worth maybe 150,000. She's probably worth over 10 million now. Bernie, the dyed-in-the-wool socialist, never had a job till he was 40. The only side job he had was writing porn for like Penthouse. Is worth probably, I would say, 6, 7 million. Yeah, okay. These people, including Cori Bush, never worked a day in their lives, and they use government not to serve but to fund their lazy ass. And they're the dumbest of the dumb.
Yep, that's pretty much
How's
the
that?
the size of it. That sums it up
There you
pretty
go.
well.
But when you have people like Jamie Raskin and others, right, not saying anything, being radio silent, you do have heroes that are not Jewish, like Rubio and Tom Cotton, basically talking about deporting members of Hamas. You don't have Jamie Raskin. You don't have Bernie. Bernie Sanders is condemning Israel. So there, we already talked about that, but you do have some heroes, basically people that understand what's required. These people are not usually in Congress and certainly not in the White House, but there are people that do get the drill, as they say. But I want to close on one thing, Dr. Lopkin. I'd really like to really share your opinion with our audience, and that is we talked about it a little bit in the opening, but I think it deserves further elaboration, and that is the situation that Israel is really in. And in fact, they've paused their invasion, which there's been some debate about why and how why that is happening. But they are on a razor's edge. One mistake, and it's big problems. Correct?
Yes, they are walking a tightrope. Iran has already said time is running out. Iran wants to get into this conflict as soon as
Oh, they're
possible.
oh,
You know,
ASAP, capital letters. They want a changing of the guard. The time is ripe because you have a weakling president. Now's the time to geopolitically, China's coming, kind of asserting itself, somewhat in some cases overtaking us, and now it's time in Iran's mind to turn the tables in the Middle East and usurp Israel's power and position them as the alpha male, correct?
yes, and this is exactly the time that Iran wants to do it.
Now,
Watch,
right now.
watch, wait, yes, watch mainstream media. You will not hear about this. But the Obama nuclear deal is a sunset on Iran being able to sell weapons. The UN was enforcing this, and all anybody had to do, the America has veto power. They could have vetoed the sunset. The UN resolution that kept Iran from selling weapons expired last night, and America did nothing. They didn't veto, we let it happen. So yes,
Doesn't
now
really surprise me. It's
now
very disconcerting.
Iran wants to get into this because now they can openly sell weapons to the terrorists. They can openly sell weapons to Russia to use in Ukraine. They can openly sell weapons to China to use against Taiwan. And guess where this drone technology came from?
President Obama, and by the way, they should have a they should have statues in every corner of Tehran for President Hussein Obama. He made Iran who they are today, pallets of cash, well beyond 6 billion, like more
Yeah.
towards the several hundred billion, and he
Yeah,
basically
I think the estimate was $468 billion.
a drop in the bucket. There you go. And he also, because he was a wussy, and he probably did it intentionally for all I know, gave them drone technology because they hacked into one of our drones about 15 years ago. Time flies. And instead of doing, other people called for it, launching a cruise missile, not an aggressive cruise missile attack, but in some way blowing up that drone. But he refused to do it. And guess who was the second most advanced drone creator and possessor of drone technology in the world? Drum roll, please. Iran. Thank you very much, President Obama, one of the greatest presidents of all time, according to academia.
Yeah, they reverse engineered our technology,
There you
and
go.
now they are selling those drones across the world.
And we'll use on Israel. Thank you very much.
Yes, and have been used on Israel. These drones were the ones that dropped the grenades on the Israeli Defense Forces tanks.
Beautiful. Well, Dr. Lopkin, I'm sure next week is going to be just as disturbing, but interesting as well. I know our listeners love your insights and love our conversation, and they can access us in many ways, can't they?
Yes, they can. And, we'd love to hear from you. And quite frankly, right now, more than ever, I want to hear what you think because, quite frankly, the Carnivore Radio Facebook page, the our sister podcast, Raw Naked Truth uh, podcast Facebook page, we were inundated over the past week with anti Semitic comments, none of which, by the way, came from the United States. So I am asking our U.S. listeners who stand with Israel, post a comment, let us know what you think. And of course,
Thank you, Dr. Lopkin. Good.
you can catch every episode of Carnivore Radio at xvadio.com/podcasts, the Carnivore Radio website, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, Amazon Music, and other platforms that respect freedom of speech.
Thank you, Dr. Lopkin. See you next week.
We'll see you then.